Hey, what is up YouTube? Kolst here, looking a little different because with natural lighting, I know it's terrifying, but yeah, I wanted to make a video because I'm recording this on Saturday the 23rd. Towards the end of last week, they actually made a couple changes for Arena, pretty significant because that usually doesn't happen. It seems like it might be starting to happen a bit more with the new modes team taking over Arena. So I just wanted to get right into this and talk about it, and towards the end I'll talk a little bit about specifically this change that we're talking about right now, a little bit more commentary around it, because there's been a lot of discussion about it. This was on Thursday, I believe, that Deck Tech tweeted this, a post on the forums talking about some bug fixes, but included in those bug fixes were one very significant arena change, which is Golakka Glutton is banned from arena deck building. So if you're not familiar with this card exactly, this is the 3-mana 2/3 pirate, which has the battle cry destroy a beast and gain +1/+1. So this thing was a little bit I'll say toxic, because this thing could eat certain colossal minions. It could eat like a North Sea Kraken, something huge. And there were certain cards specifically as well, like Selfish Shellfish, which this thing made very punishing to draft. The general thing though is that, in my opinion, especially in this meta, there's just so many beasts right now. If you look at like the total arena cards, there's like over 1,000 arena cards. And not all these are even minions, actually. It's changes to minion. There's like almost 700 minions, and almost 80 of them are beasts. So that's like over 10% of the card pool is beasts. It's one of those, it makes it so Golakka Glutton really, there's no strategy to it. You end up just picking it because it's just an objectively powerful card. And the stats will show just as much, because this is all neutrals right now with legendaries excluded. Like, you don't have to go that far down the list. We'll talk about School Teacher and Mothership at the top later, but you know, Glutton is right here, right next to, like, you know, Traveling Merchant, Gorilla Bot, Excavation Specialist, Bloodguard. Pretty good cards. It's right at the same level because it's just really good. And Matt London, who's the lead of the modes team now, made this tweet talking about it, basically explaining this change. It was warping the draft experience for many players, intended to make beast minions more viable, continuing to monitor other high-performing neutral cards. And in a few of the replies, he does clarify a little bit. You know, someone asked about Gangplank Diver, which he's mentioned previously as well. He says he's monitoring it as well with Mothership and a few other cards. And as well about a couple little bugs as well. Because a couple of these outliers he's talking about, if you're not aware, there are like 2 clear outliers, well 3 really right now, and Mothership is one of them. It gives you just way too many stats on average. It's just crazy. School Teacher does way too much as well, and Puffer Fist. Well, you know, Puffer Fist being the minion where it deals AoE damage every time you attack, specifically in, you know, Demon Hunter, Rogue, and to a slightly lesser extent Druid. Very powerful card. And Puffer Fist is a great segue into the next section of this video, because there are also balance changes, which we can pretend like were made for Arena. I don't think they were actually made for Arena, but they will impact Arena, because there's some balance changes. Specifically, there's some overall changes here, like wild changes. Kael'thas is getting touched, Switcheroo as well, things like that. But I'm going to specifically talk about the changes that impact Arena. There are a couple standard changes, which Puffer Fist here, as I mentioned, was just talking about, is losing health. It's going from a 3-mana 3/4 to a 3/3. So it's no longer going to be a premium statted minion, and particularly the fact that, you know, 3 health means it's going to be eaten by Knight Captains is very, very significant. So other classes lose a Spider Tank, but as well, you are going to have to pay a significant price, even in like Demon Hunter or Rogue, to actually run that card. And the other change is that Miracle Growth, the Druid card, is going from 7 mana to 8 mana. Miracle Growth, again, this is the card if you're not familiar. It's one of the 2 cards, along with Scale of Onyxia, that are the 2 common cards that are really, really putting Druid at the top right now. If you just look at the win rates, you know, things are pretty crazy right now. So these 2 changes combined are both going to, you know, hurt Druid and Demon Hunter just a little bit. To be totally honest, I don't think Miracle Growth gaining a mana is really going to matter that much, but, you know, Puffer Fist is going to matter as well. Puffer Fist isn't a great card in Druid, but it's really good in Demon Hunters, so maybe toning down the Demon Hunters as well is going to be nice. So these changes overall, even though I think they're made specifically for Standard, just even completely by accident, they are going to bring things, I think, a little bit closer to balanced in Arena, but I do hope that they end up making a bit more changes still to, you know, bring the classes a little bit more in, because this isn't going to help the bad classes at the bottom right now. You know, Priest, Hunter, Warrior, these classes are going to need a lot more help. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of the discussion around these changes, because part of what really, I think, drove the Golakka Glutton change in particular, Matt London made this post, I believe a couple days into this rotation, when I had already looked into the balance because I was doing research for my video talking about what the good classes were, and you know, I immediately raised the concern like, hey, I think class balance is going to be a little bit bad, right? Hopefully you guys are doing something. But you know, the change which I think was the most popularly talked thing, we're talking about curating cards, another topic for another video, but specifically hate cards like Golakka Glutton. If you just scroll through, you're gonna see like, you know, Golakka Glutton, other stuff, you know, but multiple people bring up the Golakka Glutton point specifically. I think it was the most popular brought up card in this entire post. But other points as well. I mean, I saw Knight Captain mentioned, you know, a couple posts about Gangplank Diver, Mothership, and also another person here bringing up, you know, the balance thing, because basically, as he mentioned, the guy that used to do arena balance, they used to have this system, blah, blah, blah. But the point was, is the guy that used to do it left and they haven't figured out a way to do it yet. Hopefully they're working on it because, you know, it needs to come soon rather than later as far as I can see. But I wanted to talk about this Reddit thread here, where this was the thread that mentioned that Golakka Glutton is going to be banned from arena deck building. So there were some responses here. I thought it would be interesting to go over about it, where someone got their Croc encountered burned, doesn't it? Kind of insinuating that one of the devs probably got wrecked by this card and did it. I don't think that was probably the reason. It'd be kind of funny. We like to think that might be the reason, but it's probably just, you know, I think this Twitter thread, a lot of people weren't aware of this Twitter thread, people that aren't, you know, not everyone's all over Hearthstone Twitter, right? So weren't even aware of this, which I mentioned to someone else. Someone also said selfish move, kind of insinuating the same thing. And then Blobby, who is another arena streamer, by the way, corrected him, saying it's a shellfish move to, you know, kind of enable the selfish shellfish, as I mentioned earlier, right? But as normal with Reddit, some of the more sarcastic comments are at the top. But, you know, some people said, you know, this isn't their first priority, but it's a good change. A lot of people agree that this is the best change, although, you know, people mentioning like Knight Captain again, like Knight Captain, for whatever reason, I don't seem to have the same issue with Knight Captain as a lot of people. Like, it's a very powerful card, but I don't really, you know, I don't seem to have the same issue with it that other people do, because it's like, I have more of an issue with Gangplank Diver, but, you know. I wanted to talk specifically about this post where people say why this card specifically, because they mention like cards like Big Game Hunter or Grim Bounty Hunter, implying that they're the same, but I don't really agree that they are the same. As I talked about, you know, there are just so many beasts, and specifically like Big Game Hunter, I actually have the stats pulled up for all of these cards. You know, like the thing with Golakka Glutton is it's just, as I think I mentioned on the thread, this is just an objectively powerful card. Big Game Hunter is pretty close, but it's an epic. And the other thing with Big Game Hunter is you expect when you play a big card, like, you know, there's other answers, maybe all classes don't have it, but you expect that your opponent might have something like Hex, Flanking Maneuver, you know, something that kind of counters a big minion. So Big Game Hunter isn't doing something unique, right? There needs to be answers to big minions as well in general, just because otherwise, you know, the game becomes really stupid. Everyone just picks all the big cards, and then, you know, whoever has more big cards wins. It's, I think, healthy for something like this to exist in a card game like Arena, where something like this is completely different, because it's kind of indiscriminately killing random things. And then Grim Bounty Hunter, it's a little weird just because it's legendary. This thing I have an issue with just because, like, why do you want to eat legendaries? You don't want to punish people who draft legendaries. It's kind of innately unfun. But fortunately, this card is terrible just because it doesn't hit often enough. So at least it fixes itself that way. That's why I mentioned here, like, probably because this card's common and a very good card and the others aren't. And there is another, this is like too long for this video, but like another, people compare it to like Knight Captain, which does eat 3 health minions a little bit unfairly, right? At least with Knight Captain, there's like interesting things you can play around it. Like, you know, I say like I don't have as big an issue with Knight Captain as I do with like Gangplank Diver. A lot of people seem to really hate Knight Captain because it does actually have a higher win rate. If you look at the win rates here, it's actually it's a bit higher than Gangplank Diver. So, you know, there is that, but, you know, we don't necessarily want to ban cards just for being powerful, unless they're too powerful. And there's a whole discussion I don't want to get into super deep right now. You know, I understand a little bit of hesitancy for not wanting to ban cards just for being powerful, but especially cards that are like way too common. You know, if you're talking about cards that are just too powerful, you know, there's a clear offender right now, and that's Mothership. I think, you know, School Teacher, you can say the same thing about. It's actually higher win rate than Mothership. but at least it's a much more interesting card. Mothership is just kind of a boring pile of stats. It's just kind of offensive. So I do hope that Mothership, at least they do something to it. I know Adducta from Gringoat specifically really hates this card with a passion, so he'll be very glad to presumably see this card go. Because to put some context, like these two cards are the two highest win rate neutrals basically by a full %, and if you even compare, you put legendaries into the equation, these two cards are better than like Lady Prester, Alex Straza, and it's still 2% less than Ivus, but you know, they're in the same like ballparks. That just shows like how incredibly powerful these cards are. Because I kind of skipped over it, but one of the points that was brought up by Dreads, you know, was that part of what makes these super powerful cards less fun isn't necessarily the power level of cards, but just the fact that you get forced to take so many terrible cards right now that you just can't compete with any of the new stuff, right? You know, that's one of the other big changes I'd like to see, is just having them do, you know, something, whether that's reducing offering rate of bad cards or getting rid of the bad cards, you know, or buffing the bad cards, as I mentioned here. You know, they did the working greaser change. Anything they could do there to just make the game a bit less high variance in that sense. Because at least for myself personally, I think it's great that they're actually, you know, not only listening to our comments and requests, but actually, you know, acting on them, because historically they haven't intended to do that. Arena, as I've mentioned previously, has gone over this under this new modes team under Matt London, so it looks like it might be a good sign of things to come. I guess with that, I'm interested to hear what you guys think. What do you think the card that you would most like to see banned next would be? Do you not want to see any cards banned? Do you want Arena to be a clown fiesta of obscenely powerful cards? Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, comment. If you're watching this video right now, as of releasing it, I should be live on Twitch, so you can come and talk to me and ask me questions live on Twitch as well. Of course, the link to that, twitch.tv/kolst. It's also in the description of the video. But yeah, thanks a lot again for hanging out. We'll see you guys in the next one.